On October 1st, the people of Israel had another sleepless night. Iran launched a series of toys into the territory of the Jewish state. Throughout the night, many contrasting images were recorded. Israelis were worried and took shelter, while people in the Iranian capital Tehran, Iraq's Baghdad and Palestinians in the West Bank took to the streets to celebrate. The leaders of both sides sent two conflicting messages, while the Israeli Prime Minister's face was very tense, warning that Iran had made a big mistake and would pay a heavy price. The Iranian Grand Ayatollah declared an imminent victory, followed by a graphic image of Iran's diverse toy warehouse, some of which were being launched. However, if I were the Prime Minister of Israel, I would be very careful with the Iranian Ayatollah's statements. The Western-controlled media often gives one-sided information, causing many people to underestimate Iran, thinking that Iran is a dog that barks but does not bite. But no. Iran's health may surprise us all. And I'll explain why. The first thing to note is that, unfortunately, there are so many things we don't know and may never know about the Iranian military. So what we say in this video, you should not consider it an official statement or anything, but rather estimates and guesses from experts for reference only and may have a large deviation. For example, even major international organizations like the International Institute for Strategic Studies or the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute cannot agree on Iran's military budget. The number could be $44 billion or $10 billion, depending on who you ask. And this clip is based on a report by the Center for Strategic and International Studies and the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Now, let's get started. It is certainly true that Iran's military is huge, with an estimated 610,000 soldiers. That means they have the most powerful army in the Middle East and North Africa, surpassing Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Not only that, Iran also has one of the largest armies in the world, ranking 8th in the overall rankings. For comparison, Iran's army is only 6th in the region with 169,000 soldiers, below both Morocco and Iraq. From that simple fact, you understand why we should not underestimate Iran's army, right? But of course, numbers are not everything. Admittedly, the size of Iran's army is quite impressive. But if you look closely under the microscope, you will discover that the composition of this army is not like those considered normal armies, because its strength revolves around two main opposing pillars. One is the conventional army, equipped and trained to carry out the traditional forms of land, air and naval forces, fighting against similarly structured military forces. And the second, we talk about the unique tactic called asymmetric warfare, which is applied to take the few against the many, the weak against the strong. It is often used, but not necessarily, forces such as rebels, resistance militias, who can act as illegal combatants against a conventional army. At first glance, these two pillars are completely opposite, but both are aimed at coordinating perfectly with each other to maximize self-defense capabilities. In this way, Iran wants to ensure that it can respond to any threat and that there is no action that it cannot theoretically take. The regular army, whose full name is the Islamic Republic of Iran Army or ARTES, includes the Army, Air Force and Navy. Then we have the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or Shepherd, which is a completely separate force from ARTES and is more powerful than the regular army. They carry out some conventional missions, but the most important is the asymmetric warfare we just talked about. Shepherd was created in 1979 after the Iranian Revolution. At the beginning, it was more like a secret police force with the specific mission of protecting the then fledgling city clerical regime. It was also created to be an important counter to the traditional Iranian army. which was believed to still be loyal to the Persian kings who were being pushed around after the revolution, initially operating as a domestic force. It expanded rapidly after Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein invaded Iran in 1980. At that time, Iran's supreme leader gave Shepard the army, navy and air force, operating independently of the regular army. Over time, Shepard took on more and more paramilitary duties. In general, anything that the regular Arch army could not do openly, Shepard would step in. After more than 40 years, the Revolutionary Guard has developed into a full-fledged military force alongside the regular army. They are the only force with the authority to oversee Iran's ballistic missile program. And their intentions were made clear in March 2016. At that time, Shepard presented Israel with a heart with the words "Israel must be wiped out" written in Thai. Equipped with a variety of hot goods, Shepard's army can conduct a variety of operations depending on geopolitical needs. From covertly taking down opponents to full-scale conventional warfare if necessary. Shepard's navy operates mainly in the Gulf of Bahr too, but can go much further if necessary. They use small attack boats and mini-submarines. And their preferred strategy is to deploy in swarms to harass and overwhelm their opponents. They can also deploy mines and anti-ship missiles in dizzying numbers. It is said that if a real hot conflict does occur, their top priority is to turn this area into a horror route that the enemy dare not approach. However, the most interesting is still the Air Force. They have access to ground systems such as the Russian Kodaks 15, S-300, S-400, as well as most of the long-range and medium-range toys in stock. As for how many such toys they have, no one can give an exact number. However, looking at the way Iran casually practices and launches toys at Israel, it seems that what we are seeing is only a small part of the toys they use to threaten. Iran is very focused on developing these toys. First of all, it is convenient to be able to target other countries' territory without deploying rocket launchers. An option that is expensive and requires a lot of logistics. Second, it gives Iran the ability to maintain control of its airspace. Applying that logic, Iran has also developed a variety of unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, for a variety of purposes. In terms of effectiveness, some commentators were quick to downplay their threat after Iran retaliated against Israel in April 2024. Iran launched some 170 UAVs at Israel, but none of them hit a target. That may sound like Iran is losing money, but think about it this way. Israel's air-raw missiles used in combat cost $3.5 million each. And the entire fireworks show cost Israel more than $1 billion. We don't have exact figures on the cost of Iranian UAVs, but it certainly can't be $3.5 million. So is Iran really losing money? Of course. This doesn't mean that Iran would win if they actually fought. But they could certainly surprise Israel. And now, to be fair, let's talk about Iran's weaknesses first. The first and most obvious problem by far is that Iran's military equipment is quite outdated. This is most evident in its air force. Most of Iran's aircraft were purchased from the US during the time of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who ruled Iran from 1941 to 1979 when the US and Iran were still in cahoots. But as you know, when the two countries became enemies, these aircraft were not maintained. Many were disabled due to lack of spare parts. Iran is said to have purchased a small number of fighters from Russia in the 1990s and is currently looking to buy more Su-35s. Compared to Israel, Iran's air force is far behind in terms of equipment. America's closest ally in the Middle East has things like the brand new F-35. However, Iran is not completely hopeless just because of the age of its aircraft. Iran's fleet may be at a distinct disadvantage against modern fighters, but they can still challenge their opponents thanks to their experienced pilots and the powerful toys that these aircraft carry. An example is in the late 1990s. Iran's small, outdated air force faced off against NATO's air force. They still managed to shoot down a number of US aircraft, including an F-117 stealth fighter. This proves once again that Iran's military power is more formidable than we think. In the case of actually fighting Israel, it is not yet known who will win or lose. But Iran will certainly cause many difficulties and surprises for Israel. We can also somewhat imagine that prospect through the time Iran gave fireworks to Israel last night. Tehran claims to have used its most advanced toy, the Fatah-2 hypersonic missile, which is 14 times faster than the speed of sound. Iran claims it is capable of penetrating any defense shield and has hit 90% of its targets in Israel. Israel's defense ministry later claimed it was capable of defeating any Iranian toy, but refused to reveal where they were. Many images of Iran's toys crashing into targets were posted on social media. Some were identified as being filmed near Tel Nof and Nevatim airports, where Israel's military base is located near Tel Aviv, leading many to wonder if the Iron Dome had fallen. And that is why Israel and its Western allies should not underestimate Iran, or they will pay a heavy price.